Where are you going with those?
Hi.
So, we couldn't go to the cinema anytime soon. So there's only 4 new films we could choose from. They've been early released. There was Invisible Man, The Hunt, Emma, and then Astronauts. Or Aeronauts. Some bullshit. So we chose Invisible Man. Yay.
The Invisible Man is a reboot of the 1930 film series The Invisible Man. The sci-fi horror follows our protagonist Celia C. Cass as she becomes more and more convinced that her abusive ex-partner has begun stalking her by somehow walking the earth seeming completely invisible.
So yeah, I didn't watch The Mummy, but that sunk the whole Dooku, that one film. Tom Cruise single-handedly sinking the Dooku.
They threw a lot of money at that as well.
I know that one embarrassing photo of all the cast they were going to go with Johnny Depp and like...
Oh yeah, for all the films that they were doing.
Yeah, that's going to be the most embarrassing photo ever.
I still think the trailer was more embarrassing when they released it with no sound.
Oh,
apart from Tom Cruise rolling about in an airplane and screaming.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant the one where it's like all the old monster movies mashed together. Did you watch that? Did you see
I
that
haven't seen that one.
Oh, you need to watch the actual Dooku trailer. It's so embarrassing. It's like the original like black and white ones, but then to like new music. It's painful. Yeah, so originally it was meant to be Johnny Depp, the Invisible Man, which I don't know where they were going to go with it. I assume it was just going to be a big blockbuster like The Mummy.
I don't know about you, but when they cast him as the Invisible Man, when I saw like the old footage of the man with tape and the sunglasses and the hat on, I thought that kind of suited him. Is that weird?
No, I can imagine it. If he's playing someone who's just crazy, do you know, like kind of, do you know, it's over the top Captain Jack Sparrow kind of thing. I thought that would suit him, yeah.
Imagine with the last decade that Johnny Depp's had, he probably wants to play a role where no one's allowed to look at him.
Yeah.
Don't look at me!
Oh, or he can have someone else play it on set.
Yeah.
He can just
I don't have to be there,
I'll
I'll just be somewhere else.
So they gave it a little bit to Blumhouse, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Blumhouse have made some good films and like they kind of dominate at the moment in terms of horror films for the modern audience. But I feel like the magic that you know, Universal, that type of cinema had is kind of lost with these films. I don't know. It didn't feel like an old iconic story.
When Blumhouse are in control, it feels like it could be hit or miss. I feel like, you know, the horror films of old, like the big studio sort of stuff, seem like more of a spectacle, whereas when Blumhouse gets hold of it, it's like, let's make a horror film out of any old shit.
Yeah.
Which, that's not to say that it's going to be bad, I just think that like some of the concepts they're going for are getting thinner and thinner.
Yeah, like Blumhouse is Truth or Dare.
Truth. That's not how this works. Only the game decides.
But yeah, I don't know, I can see why they've given them the rights to do these films, because it's the only way they can make them, I guess in their minds, relevant to today's audience.
It's the contrast in budget as well. They've made The Invisible Man on such a smaller budget compared to The Mummy, because The Mummy was multiples of millions, tens and tens of millions, hundreds of millions,
well,
I think.
After that, like, you couldn't do that again. It was such a flop that
I don't think they'd let them,
They
though.
didn't have the money to be like, yeah, let's do that again.
The Invisible Man's been made on something around $7 million, and the quality of the content is completely different.
It's a really nice looking film. I don't think it was anything too amazingly shot though. Like, I don't know who directed. Oh, Leigh Whannell. No, did he just produce it?
No, he directed it.
Oh, he directed it?
Yeah.
I don't think it was that amazingly shot. There was anything too interesting, if you know what I mean.
Tell you what was interesting, you copping that Jigsaw picture in the background.
Oh yeah, so that him dropping in his little...
I made this!
Yeah, nods to his other films. It's like, okay. No nods to any other Dooku movies though. I don't know if they're still calling it the Dooku, but it makes me laugh.
Isn't it like the Universal Monsters trilogy now?
Oh.
The Umk. No, the Umku. Umku. We'll go with Umku.
Oh god, the Unku. Oh well, anyway, it doesn't look like they were leading up to any other Unkus. The Mummy, they dropped in Russell Crowe because he's meant to play Dr. Jekyll. They clearly thought they had a future.
Well, that was the whole point of them setting up a cinematic universe.
Yeah.
And then they pasted up the wall rather spectacularly.
I wonder if they didn't expect this to do well. That's why they just kind of were like, we're not doing that.
We'll just put it to the side. It's not going to do that. Yeah.
We'll do this one. It won't allude to anything else. And then obviously it's actually done pretty well. I don't know if you felt this, but when I was watching it, it felt like we started halfway through the film. Because like with the trailer, we start pretty much where the trailer is. where she's running away from an abusive partner. And then obviously it goes on from there. But it felt like we didn't see anything to back up the rest of like what the story is, because we didn't see him do anything prior to that.
So extensively, I thought this film was probably a really good representation of domestic abuse victims, and you know, like the impact it has on their lives as a whole, because you watch Celia suffer all the way through, and yet her antagonist isn't even present most of the time. It's just like had these lasting effects on her, even from the beginning, where she wakes up in her house and she's like precariously getting out of bed, slipping under his grasp and trying to escape. It already conveyed to me quickly that how much of a hold on her life that this guy has, that she won't even wake him or even come up with an excuse. Like, you get up in the middle of the night and say, like, you know, she's popping to the bathroom for a big shit, and then it's not like he's going to be like, where do you think you're going? Because you're going for a big shit and nobody wants to be in that room. But at the same time, she didn't throw any of those lines. She just snuck out and tried to be sneaky.
Well, I wondered if part of it was, are they going to make it seem like she is just crazy, like he's not a total dick, and...
Or like she's making it up in her head.
Yeah, but then as soon as I saw that, like, electric shock collar on the dog, I was like, no, he's evil. He's clearly evil. So there was no, like, ambiguousness about that.
I love how much you were raging that she wouldn't take the dog with her. She was leaving the dog with her.
When she said, I can't take you with me, I was like, just strap it to your back and jump over the wall. There's no reason why you can't take that dog with you.
The funniest thing was she was taking the shock collar off the dog. The dog was kind of like, I don't give a fuck, you're not escaping if you're not going to take it with me. She just smacks its ass off the car door, and then the car alarm goes off. Oh my word.
What a way to get
Sassiest
caught.
pooch.
I really like the opening titles, because it's kind of like the water splashing and making the invisible man appear. The invisible letters. It was cool.
I thought it was pretty cool considering that the film's on low budget, even when the titles came on. I was like, damn, that looks kind of cool.
There's like little creative, inspirational things like that, which I'm like, oh, that's interesting. There wasn't too many of them, but there were little things like that. Made it stand out against, you know, it made it seem like someone cared about the film. Yeah. Which was good.
It's not just another big budget horror film that's thrown in your face.
Not The Nun.
No. You'll bring that up.
The Nun is the go-to horror film of shit.
Hello.
I think for a big budget horror film, they haven't cast her typical mid-20s actress as the lead role. It's Elizabeth Moss, who she's been in a few things I've seen before.
Yeah, I enjoyed her in Us.
I really enjoyed her performance. I thought it was brilliant. I think you got a lot more out of her than you would from any kind of typical no-name horror lead.
Yeah, I think it definitely grounded the film, made it more realistic, rather than being like a kind of slasher or whatever. It wasn't like, running away from this monster. It was like she was really acting.
I can prove what I'm experiencing. You need help.
There's so much like nuance with some of the camera techniques and the little details that they have where, you know, there's the scenes where some characters are doing a particular activity. It shows so much negative space to allude that there is an invisible man standing there.
Yeah, it was interesting how she always kind of feels his presence. Like, she always knows when he's there, which I found really off-putting.
I think it's probably to show representation of a domestic abuse victim. She explains it quite a few times that he controlled what she did, what she wore, eventually what she thought.
They never show anything, you know, that happened to her. Like I said, it feels like he's starting halfway through the film. It is weird the way it's set up. But I guess that's to make him like, he's kind of like a Michael Myers type thing where it's like he's the id, is something you don't really know about. Because he seems kind of, in some places, he seems kind of supernatural. Like, he can hit people really hard and knock out a lot of people. Like, he has kind of weird supernatural ability to him, which I don't know if it's meant to be or if that's just how it is.
I think that's just like a horror movie thing, kind of, yeah. I quite like that kind of concept of Adrian's character. It's like I don't even really remember getting a clear-cut look at his face until, like, towards the end of the film when you actually get to see him uncovered.
A big issue with this film for me is that it kind of teeters on ridiculousness. It's on like a really fine line of, like, when I watched The Exorcist when I was a kid, like I thought it was really funny at the time, but now I watch it and it's really scary. But this kind of teeters on that line of, is it too ridiculous that it's funny, or is it scary and tense? Where is it on the ridiculous scale for you? For me, there was a couple of times like when she's outside and like you can see her breath, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're gonna see his breath, and then you just see this little next to her, and obviously that's meant to be really scary because it's got like this twang that goes with it, but I just laugh. There was a couple of moments like that, especially when they do that bit where he stands on the bed sheet and he gets closer to it, and it doesn't scare me. It didn't work for me on that way. I kind of liked how unsure she is with her face, where like she's kind of holding the sheet like that and she sees a footprint come down and like her face just kind of goes like,
And then another footprint comes down and she goes... and then she kind of like...
I don't know. It kind of reminds me a bit of like that Paranormal Activity, like the bit like where there's like duck footprints through some flour, which is like meant to be the demon. Like that's meant to be scary,
popping through.
but it's not. And the bit with like the pool cleaner, things like that, where it's like it's meant to be creepy because it's like, oh, this thing's moving by itself, but then when you're just watching it on face value, it's like it's a pool cleaner getting up a side of it.
Right, I'm going to level with you. Paranormal Activity 1, the sheet thing coming off them, and then she gets
scary.
dragged out of the room. Really scary. Paranormal Activity 2, the pool cleaner that ends up in the pool all the time for no reason. Not scary.
Yeah, but there's a really fine line between what is scary and what isn't. That's why in this, like...
And that is a man on a sheet breathing on a woman's hair.
Yeah, because it was like... Because when I was watching it, I was thinking, even when I watched the trailer, I was like, it's not going to scare me because, like, even though they're doing the tense build-up to a jump scare, in this I was like, well, I'm not going to see anything because the Invisible Man's invisible. So, like, whenever something happened, it's just going to be her going, reacting to, like, something kind of like Paranormal Activity. So it never got me really ramped up in that way because I just thought, oh, well, nothing's going to jump out at me.
I think that goes forward to say that Elizabeth Moss did a really good job in acting in the lead role because everything comes from her, the emotions that she conveys. Being attacked by an invisible man, it's a one-woman job. You know what I mean? Even without the like all the special effects of her being attacked and sort of stuff.
It's true. I do think she really carries the film because that scene where she like literally fights no one because it's just her getting dragged around and that I think that worked. That didn't look too silly. There were a couple of moments where it was pretty scary. There's a shot in the trailer where like she throws paint down and it like covers him and it's like
You see his golf ball head.
Yeah, it looks like a weird golf ball and you're like, what? So things like that. There are moments that do work for me. But overall, I did think it just came out a bit too much on the silly side.
I think why special effects work for me really well. Side note, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon martial arts stuff really turns me off when they like, you know, grab the same bamboo stick and flip like 50 million times on their own. I'm not a fan of that, but whereas if you're talking like Nightmare on Elm Street where like somebody's stuck on the roof and they kind of like spin around in circles and stuff, that freaked me out when I was a kid. So I really like to see practical effects of like people being lifted up without anything, not just be a complete CGI body or green screened, and then they just start flapping about.
There was a couple of moments like that, like when we were talking about the supernatural thing before. Do you know, like when there's a scene where he like cuts someone's throat and then puts a knife in her hand, but it happens so fast that it looks ridiculous. It's literally just like
it's the slickest kill scene I've ever seen. Where
she was
just
like Thor bringing the.
She just sat there and it's like, what do you want to say to me? And then she's even got like a hand there, so when the knife flies in her hand, she just goes. I don't know about you, but I would drop that knife as soon as I hold it. Oh my goodness.
I think it happened so quick you couldn't even process it.
It was great as well. All the people in the restaurant are walking like, oh my god, and she's just kind of like... A few other of the, you know, the Invisible Man moments where he tries to make the world around her think that she's crazy by doing things that are out of her power. For instance, turning up the frying pan while she's away for a few seconds and then the thing sets on fire. There's this one moment specifically where C is with James's daughter Sid and they're having a chat and she tries to cheer her up by saying, let's go into the room and try and eat some cake. You know, like we'll have a nice time together. And it's like, yeah, I'd really like that. And there's like this one moment where C's been lying on the floor and she gets up and she's halfway through getting up. Sid gets punched in the back of the head and she hits the floor.
She gets punched in the face.
Is it in the face? I don't know. She kind of like.
I know it's like bloody, so I think she gets pushed in the face, but she's well too far.
She's
away
like
from
she's so far away from her, and then she's like, "Oh, you hit me!" And then the dad comes in and he's like, "I can't believe you hit my door." And it's like we are so far away. I can't punch you from the other side of the room.
No, she literally gets tried from the other side of the room and then she's like, oh my god, what did you do to me? It makes no sense at all. Anybody, like, I know your first instinct wouldn't be Invisible Man, but it would be like, oh my god, what just hit me? You wouldn't be like, oh my god, you hit me. It was, yeah, there are moments like that where it's like, it's a bit unbelievable. All the sound effects are a bit loud and crazy in this film. Yeah, there's a bit where she throws paint on him and he just screeches like a bat. He's like, and I'm like, why? Some of them don't make sense. They're trying to use like the average horror sound effects, but they don't fit in with the film.
I thought the score was cool. Every time the score reached its crescendo, it was like the kind of, you know, typical Inception horns that you get with blockbuster films. But I thought it came together really well that it only happens like twice in the film.
Yeah, it helps build in the tension. I do think that definitely adds to it massively. It's just a weird little bit of noise.
By the time we actually get to meet Adrian in person, I feel like they did a really good way of reintroducing him properly, because we've seen him sleeping, we've seen him chasing her on foot, we've seen him dead on the floor in the bathroom through the photos. So you never really get to see him until this last piece where he's back at the house and she meets him face to face, and he kind of introduces himself and he's like, "You're really pretty," sort of stuff. And
yeah, because he was acting all charming, and even I was like, "Oh, he seems alright." And then
I wasn't convinced. Not a jot. There's no way.
well, you do see him punch through a window at the start, and like I said, the dog. It's like there's no way I was gonna think he was alright, but it just comes across. It is that manipulative thing. They got him to act like really like shy and stuff, and like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And
I think he went through numerous stages, because there's like he's really apologetic. He starts to get a little bit angry because she keeps accusing him of lying and he won't admit the truth. And then the bit when she starts breaking down and crying, he closes the distance with her and puts his hand on her thigh and kind of gets into that kind of controlling mentality again. That even when he doesn't show him abusing her, it felt like he was getting comfortable being in that position again, which I thought displaying that relationship between the two of them was probably the most impactful part of the film for me.
yeah, I think that was one of the scariest moments of the film for me. Like that was when I was actually like, "Oh my god, he's terrifying." Because up to there, he's just like a faceless thing that's haunting her. And then when you actually see him at the end, you're like, "Oh my god."
His true representation, when we can actually see his face, is not something to be proud of, if you know what I mean. He's meant to be the man who's in power, and then yet when we meet him, he's like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't treat you correctly," sort of stuff.
You can tell it's an act though, because you can tell it's paining him to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
When he's saying like, "Oh, I didn't know what food you'd want. There's so many different foods here, and you might not even be hungry." And I'm like, "Oh, you can tell he's like that's hurting him to give her choice on things."
I don't know. I think he's flexing on her because he's like, "Look at all these amazing foods I've got for you." He's like, "Oh, I've cooked you all your favourite meals," and she's like, "I'm having the steak, you dick."
Well, I think it was just prudent that she's making a choice, because he usually tells her what to eat, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, and she was
But
like, "I'm having a steak."
Yeah, and I think you could tell his face was just like, "Oh, she's making a choice." But he wasn't really flexing. Like the house, like is ridiculous.
You don't need to flex.
When you first like see their house and they're on like just the water, they're just literally surrounded by water. It seems like so I felt like they were on their own little private island at the start, and then
Yeah, me and my ghetto ass at the start of the film were just
Yeah.
like, "Why are you leaving this man? Look at your house."
it's a bit like we got Shyamalan.
Shyamalan. Is that going in the dictionary?
Shyamalan.
You've been Shyamalan.
You've been Shyamalan. Yeah, it felt like we got that twice in the film. There was a couple of twists on there.
It's both knife kills that they do. It's are they the only people that die?
That last one was so satisfying though. I haven't felt like that since I watched the Handmaiden, and at the end, and you just like.
See, the first one of his sister in the restaurant when she gets her throat slit and then it lands in her hand, you're kind of like, oh.
It's
You're like kind of it's
a
a little bit funny. It's kind of a little bit like, oh, I can't believe this just happened. And then in this one, when Adrian gets his throat slit when he's not expecting, he's just like, give him a kick in.
And then she like takes the invisible suit, and I was like, is this leading to an invisible woman?
It's like when James has the conversation outside with her when she comes out of the house and she's just kind of like, wait a minute. You didn't want him to confess on tape, did you? And I thought he was gonna he saw the suit in a bag. I thought he was gonna be like, "What are you, some kind of invisible woman?"
And it just pans around. It's like, oh,
But they did. She walked past her and like she kind of like stood there in the dark and she's kind of like, "I'm a new independent woman and I've got an invisible suit."
Yeah, well, the ending felt like the dialogue kind of got kind of fast and furious. It's like, "I'm thinking you wanted that." He said something stupid like that, and it's like, oh my god.
Wait a minute. You didn't want him to confess after all, did you? And she's just like, "Yes, James, it's over. Just go home."
Yes, leave me be.
Just leave me
and my
be.
invisible suit be.
Yeah, don't tell anyone about it.
You're a cop, but it's fine.
State-of-the-art equipment. I'm just going to go visit the gym.
Yeah.
And then maybe into the bathrooms.
Taking my dog this time, which you should have in the first place.
So what do you think of Invisible Man?
I don't know. My issue was that I went into it seeing that it had great reviews, so I was expecting something amazing. But I don't know whether it's just a bit because The Mummy was so bad, people have been like, "Oh, this is amazing now." I do think it's good. I think it's a good thriller. The horror for me didn't really work in it. I didn't find it scary in any way. I think it did teeter on the silly too much. And I didn't like the twist of it being a suit either. With the Invisible One, because it's like, they're meant to be universal monsters. They're just... Was it the monster after all, or was just the man? It's like, I don't know if I like that. I kind of like the more supernatural, weird stuff. I felt like that just kind of made it too modern and too techy. Like the new Child's Play. I know a lot of people won't agree and will like that they didn't just rehash the same stuff. But when it's so different, why link it to a franchise? But I'd watch it again at some point. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the performances. I think Elizabeth Moss was amazing. She really carried the whole film.
I think I'd go along that way as well. It didn't underwhelm me as much as it might have you. In fact, I was a little bit impressed. I thought there was a few shortcomings with some of the more minor plot details of like how he got away with this and why is there enough witnesses of that, because he just starts, you know, towards the end of the film, he just starts doing shit as the Invisible Man and throwing stuff everywhere, and not many people kind of pull up on it as much as you'd think. But even still, I thought this came across as not really a horror, but I thought a really decent thriller based around a concept that is quite real. And I did enjoy watching a decent representation of that with performances from Elizabeth Moss. I thought it came across quite genuine.
Yeah, it's more realistic on it, grounded.
Yeah, and there was quite a lot to enjoy. Like, I got quite a kick out of it. It was good entertainment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I just wanted something more fantastical.
Oh yeah, it's like
more, if they're going to go silly, come on, wee.
They're making them like more contemporary and digital and realistic, which like I thought that gives it kind of, you know, the real horror feeling that it might happen in real life. But I know what you mean. I do kind of long for the days when it's like monsters and creepy stuff.
I think it's that stupid thing that everyone labels as elevated horror, where it's like things like this and Us and Get Out and
what?
Hereditary.
This and Us and Get Out?
Yeah. You know, Us and Get Out and then Hereditary. Like, they keep making them so grounded, even though the plots are sometimes a little bit silly, like Us, like the plot with the tethered, all that makes no sense, like if you look at it on, you know, realistic level. But it's set in such a grounded way that it's like...
You can believe it. You like kind of give it...
Yeah.
You've let 90 minutes of the film into your heart, and then the other one you're just kind of willing to look past the little intricacies.
I just feel like it's losing its kind of charm a little bit. Like this, I felt like there was no charm there for the Invisible Man. It's not an iconic character, the guy in this. I mean, it's not an iconic villain either. I just felt like it was just an average run-of-the-mill any other horror film.
Talk to me when you've watched League of the Extraordinary Gentlemen.
That's what I mean. I love that though. So many crazy things in that, but that's more fantastical, I feel, and I feel like that's more fun, what these, you know, characters were created for. Right, I'm giving it 7.5 lukewarm breaths on your neck out of 10.
I'm also going to go with 7.5 giant golf balls out of 10. Just going to the bathroom.